Narcissism, the psychological catchword of the 21st century. But what is narcissism? How does it corrupt the soul? And can it be treated and cured? Join Maulana Zahier Ahmed Raggie every Wednesday morning as he unpacks the topic of narcissism and enlightens us on the Islamic perspective of tackling this spiritual sickness. Radio Islam International, bringing you contemporary and pertinent psychological discussions.
رضاه أحب لقاه يظل يجيء إلى
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Radio Islam International. You are listening to the program You Are Loved. We were discussing about narcissism, and this took place about almost a year ago. Wow, we're coming to almost a year ago.
Maybe longer.
Maybe longer. So we've seen that today, inshallah, we're going to try to wrap it up, our 43rd episode. Now, initially, when Marana said that we are going to label this program You Are Loved, and we started discussing about, the topic of narcissism, and we went into a deep discussion of exactly what this illness is. And towards the end, when we saw that, it came to the Reformation stage, then we understood that, the topic You Are Loved. With me in studio, we have Zahier Ahmed Raggie. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We take this opportunity of greeting our listeners on Radio Islam, Radio Al Ansar, and all those that have joined us on the Ummahat platform. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, in our last discussion, as we mentioned that the topic of You Are Loved actually came about, and we were discussing about self-appearance, how a person needs to make sure that they don't lose themselves away from what is actually happening. And we discussed about how a person should work on his self-appearance for themselves, not for someone else. It reflects how you feel for yourself. People will also respect you, and no one can destroy your morals and appearances. People should also endure about physical exercises. We see many people when they go into this type of a depression, you can call it depression or whatever you want to call it. But you see, when you lose yourself, then that self-neglect comes onto the physical appearance itself. The other thing that we discussed last week was the benefits of being a single Muslim, that nothing can compare to the feeling of freedom and happiness after coming out of a toxic marriage. And a person should start appreciating all the small achievements, alhamdulillah, and when you have to offer is destined to be with someone better. We also discussed about the things that people can enjoy being single. Person can travel, acts of worship, relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And towards the end, we discussed that what the person should do in order to have a happy marriage and family. We discussed that the person should go into praying 5 times daily. Relationship with family is good. Financially stable, attraction, uses the time well. Knowledge seekers, single men, these are people that this is actually the qualities that people seek out. Single men, unless they want to be a co-wife, and people who are supportive of what they do. You also see that there's also mentally and spiritually healthy. And we were discussing about polygamy, also coming to the topic of polygamy today. While we see that polygamy and dealing with someone else's children, some women find themselves facing a decision of whether or not to accept the marriage proposal of a man who's already married or who was married before and has children.
Yes, Maulana, and this is leading from our discussion where someone has been separated and now they have a proposal to get married to someone who is already married, and you are going to be a co-wife. And in the broader sense of this discussion, we feel that this is also an important topic to discuss. So let's address this co-wife issue. So as we know in Islam, a man is permitted to take on more than one wife if he has the ability to treat them equally, which is financially, physically, emotionally, and time-wise. A Muslim man who, inshallah, is not a narcissist will generally look for a second wife for genuine, honorable reasons. And some of them may be that he wants children and his first wife is unable to conceive. His wife is unwell and unable to fulfill her marital duties towards him for a long period of time. He travels a lot for work and his wife can't go with him because she has a full-time job or because she needs to look after the children, maintain their routine and home. He is wealthy and can afford to marry again. He would marry either a single woman or someone who lives alone, a widower, a divorcee, or a single mother who has no support and would appreciate being looked after. These are the types of women that he would normally look for. So, and we've given some of the reasons. However, regardless of the reasons that facilitate a man to take on a second wife, I would strongly advise men that if they wish to get married and have a second wife, to not keep their first wife in the dark and to make sure that she agrees prior to marrying again. Now, we know that it's not a condition for her agreement, but keeping them informed is important. If she does not, if she is not kept informed, or if she is not in agreement and there aren't real valid reasons, then life will become extremely difficult. Now we're talking about the second wife. Life would become difficult for the second wife as she'll constantly cause problems. She'll be in a problems, dramas, have unpleasant rages the first wife will have. And this will eventually backfire on the second wife, who will be on the receiving end of the stress. We've often seen second wives become depressed because the first wife, usually the mother of his children, has given an ultimatum and put him under immense pressure to divorce the second. And this happens many a times. And more often than not, his loyalty will lie with the first wife as she or as he won't want to lose her or his children by keeping the second, who's usually abandoned. And if the first wife understands her husband's reasons to take on another wife and he's fulfilling all her rights and treating her well, then it's a situation a woman can safely consider. I've seen co wives become friends and help each other raise their children. But this only happens when they are stronger in their iman, their character, and when the husband treats them equally and well. They were confident and weren't jealous to each other because, sorry for that, they were confident and weren't jealous of each other because they knew no one was being treated unfairly. It's important to also avoid considering a man who's just separated, as his wife could return to him at any time if he changes her mind and wants to make the marriage work. And this tends to happen when she finds out that he has someone new in his life, and either regrets separating from him or wants to ruin his new relationship, perhaps out of spite. And a man may tell a woman not to worry and that he'll never take his wife back. But if they have children or he still has feelings for her, he's likely to do just that. And this can be an extremely painful and stressful ordeal to go through for a woman who's become attached and planned a future with him. And it can also happen to men who've become attached to women who haven't finalized their divorce. So, as advice, that this program that we had all this time was more based on advice, do yourself a huge favor and don't get involved with anyone who hasn't had the divorce finalized and spent enough time afterwards to heal from it. If she's a Muslim woman, a man must wait until her iddah is over in case her husband wishes to take her back in that period of time. If it's not his third divorce and she agrees to return to her marital home, if a man or woman is divorced and has children, you'll need to consider certain points, and I would like to tabulate some of these points. The needs of their children will always come first. A portion of a man's finances will belong to his children. And sometimes, ex wife too, if she hasn't remarried and is looking after his children most of that time. They'll need to communicate with their ex to discuss important affairs of the children, such as schooling, etc. More often than not, you won't be included in these discussions. They may have a very jealous ex who has no boundaries and will cause you stress and, you know, lots of hard discussions that will take place. And men generally find it difficult to deal with their narcissistic ex-wives, and we've discussed this, that even women are having these types of narcissistic disorders, and men generally find it difficult to deal with their narcissistic ex-wives who love to make their life unnecessarily complex and may drag their partners into court over petty issues. They may also call a lot, demand money, threaten to not send the children at weekends if they don't comply with what they want. Another important part to consider is holidays, weekends will have to be planned around children and their school breaks. You may be expected to spend a lot of time with their children who may come and visit your home regularly. So you need to really get along well with them and sacrifice some of your own privacy and free time with your spouse. Their children may see you as an enemy, especially if their narcissistic ex is bitter about the divorce and feeds their minds with negative thoughts about you. You'll be expected to be a great role model and may even be expected to provide for the children financially. If their father has abandoned them or has passed away, your children may not get along with their children and may not want to live together. The family of their ex husband or ex wife will also be part of your life if your spouse has a good relationship with them for the sake of the children. So, as you can see, marrying a single father or a single mother isn't always easy. But if you are able to communicate these issues in an open, honest manner, which you should do about all these points and agree on solutions and how to deal with them, because he or she is a great person worth it. So then that's awesome if you are able to discuss these issues, agree on some solutions, then that's awesome. I say it's awesome because in many cases, their children really need a loving, educated mother or father figure that they could perhaps not find in their biological parents. And so helping to take care of them and spending time with them will be a great form of ibadah for you. It will be a great form of charity. No one should be judged or turned away just because they are divorced. So, this is another point, that no one should be judged or turned away just because they are divorced, just because they are widowed or have children. However, you need to be prepared. You need to make sure that the person you want to marry isn't a narcissist. If you are a single parent, it's encouraged that you marry someone who's single parent too. Both your children will gain kind Muslim step parents, step brothers, and sisters, and they'll have another chance at living in a healthy, happy family environment. As adults, we have the freedom to choose our spouse, but our children can't choose their parents. Choosing a good and loving parent or step parent is our responsibility towards our own children and the first right they have over us so that they can be raised well. Try to avoid marrying someone who comes from a toxic family, as they are likely to be similar to their parents and their issues and dramas will seep into your marriage and home. If their family lives far away or in a different country, it may not be so problematic. Both men and women should make sure their home is a place where Allah is loved, Allah is remembered, and it should be at the forefront of everyone's mind when choosing a partner, a spouse. However, many people don't think about their future children when selecting a spouse anymore. This we are talking of when a single parent wants to marry. A high value Muslim will know how to choose the right spouse to break the cycle of narcissistic abuse and codependency in their family. So, this as a last point that we discussed is that if you are single and if you get a proposal and you want to marry, which is encouraged, consider these few points that we have mentioned. Again, it's only advisory. And inshallah, if you are able to address these issues with your future spouse, inshallah, and find solutions to these problems, many a times we don't consider them, but if we are able to consider them, discuss them, find solutions for them, then as I say, it's awesome. You will be able to find a good life, good partner, especially when there are children on both sides.
Gee, Ma, coming towards the end, any final words that relating to this discussion that we actually had? Any comments that Ma did want to bring up?
Yes, Morana. So, Alhamdulillah, we've come to the end of this very difficult, sensitive topic. Final words. You know, the Arabic word for delay is ta'khir, and the word for goodness is khair. Both share the three root letters khayara, the delay, ta'khir, and good khair. And I find this so beautiful as Allah Ta'ala has placed so much goodness in every delay to express His divine love and mercy for us. So, no matter how long you take to heal, if you have come out of this abusive relationship, no matter how many obstacles you experienced, how many injuries and hardships you have endured, how many doors have closed, and how long you've patiently waited for your sustenance, your rizq, your right partner, my final advice is to all of us, don't lose hope. Allah promises that what's good for you is on its way. Allah Ta'ala says, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And one of the core purposes of this discussion that we had was to teach people not to be judgmental. One of the core purposes of this discussion was to teach people not to be judgmental of others, especially within the context of mental health. Now, I say this, but I'll come back to this, Maulana. One of the core purposes of this discussion was to teach people not to be judgmental, and I'll come back to it. Those who suffer from narcissism, psychopathy, codependency, and excessive empathy, and I'll talk about the word empathy again, have issues that stem from their childhood, and their actions are a result of not being able to heal from their own traumas, from their own relationships and problems. Not everyone can see that they need healing and help, and not everyone is blessed to have good friends or been raised in a healthy Islamic home or a community. Only Allah knows the true intentions and motives behind what people do and the amount of iman and amount of faith they hold inside their hearts. It is our responsibility to focus on healing ourselves so that we can help others to heal as well. If you've been through traumatic experiences, many have, and we've had many people that have called and never understood why you attracted certain people in your life, why people treated you a certain way, or why you always had to bend backwards for people who didn't treat you well, then I make dua and I hope that this discussion that we had has been of great benefit to you. I also hope it's explained and clarified everything that you've been through so that you can finally have closure most people won't give you. I hope our program has given you the courage to cut your ties from the past and release your traumas in the wind like a weightless balloon. I hope it's given you confidence, knowledge, and comfort to know that you are always worthy of forgiving yourself and we had a lengthy discussion about wanting or being able to forgive yourself, forgiveness from Allah, love, and the great things that this life has to offer you. We also make dua and we hope that it's taught you that no matter how unloved, no matter how unwanted, no matter how unworthy you may feel with people, Allah Ta'ala will always love and protect you and continue to show you that you are capable of achieving everything you deserve when you focus your energy on building a loving relationship with Him and yourself. The way you see yourself and our value is reflected in our actions. The way you see yourself and our value is reflected in our actions, in our dignity, in our principles and morals. To make a great change in our lives, we must make an internal promise to never sell our dreams, our faith, who we truly are, for the sake of having something or pleasing anyone else again. Live your life. Don't live your life always just wanting to please someone else. You have a right for your self dignity, self respect. And only then will you be able to see the beauty of this world and its opportunities and gifts that Allah Ta'ala has saved for us. There's a beautiful story narrated about a magnificent eagle with which I will conclude our discussion, and with a saying of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So there's this beautiful story, and if you recall, in the beginning we spoke about a story of a crab that wanted to cross the river. And now we end the story with this discussion with another story narrated about this magnificent eagle that caught a weasel for food. Now, wildlife photographers were busy admiring the strength, the beauty, and the wings of the evil. They were horrified to see it fall after some time of soaring and gliding in the air. So there was this eagle that had this weasel in its paws, and photographers were amazed at the strength and the way this eagle is flying in the air. And then suddenly, after some time of soaring, gliding in the air, they saw that they were horrified that this eagle fell onto the ground. They quickly made their way to the bottom of the mountain to find out what brought down such a magnificent, majestic, powerful creature. And they were heartbroken to see that the weasel had eaten away the heart of the eagle in an attempt to escape, killing it in the process. However, the eagle was determined to have the weasel and caused itself more harm than good by holding onto it for as long until the weasel killed him. So the eagle here is like the Muslim who's full of goodness, who's full of potential and faith, and is distinguished from other people by his or her character and strength. Sometimes unique and wonderful people who have so much potential hold on to harmful people or relationships they want to save at the expense of their own mental health, because they believe they need to fix the situation with kindness, with tolerance and patience, instead of doing what's best for them and letting go. But as Allah Ta'ala says, perhaps you dislike a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it's bad for you. So we learn from this ayah not to hold on to pain and people who don't treat us well. We learn from this that not to hold on to pain and people who don't treat us well, because we've made ourselves believe that we need them. Sometimes we adamantly ask Allah for something that we desire so strongly, causing us to ignore the red flags that Allah shows us constantly without realizing that He is protecting us from its harm. At the first instance of pain, when you feel something's wrong, or when a person attempts to take little bites out of your heart, let them go immediately, because the heart they are eating away at is not just your emotions and well-being, but it will also affect your iman in Allah and yourself as well. Shaitan won't stop sending both his human and jinn soldiers to corrupt us until the day of Qiyamah. So we must recognize them and learn how to be strong, fight them mentally to protect our hearts from spiritual illness, and also work to elevate our nafs to the level of nafs mutma'inna. It is also crucial that we learn from our mistakes to experience a better outcome in our relationships and lives. I believe that if everyone followed this advice and implemented healthy standards, healthy boundaries, healthy expectations, we'll see, inshallah, a dramatic decrease in narcissism in our homes and societies. I leave you with a beautiful quotation of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who once said, "No amount of guilt can change the past, and no amount of worrying can change the future." No amount of guilt can change the past, and no amount of worrying can change the future. I leave you with this: go easy on yourself, for the outcome of all affairs is definitely determined by Allah's decree. If something is meant to go elsewhere, it will never come your way. But if it is your destiny, from you, it cannot flee. This is a hadith of Sahih Ibn Hibban. So this brings us to the end of our discussion, Maulana. And however, I would like to just conclude with a few comments. When we started this program, we do know that we had lots of comments. And I must also say that I think I have been having programs on this Radio Islam, since the initiation of this radio station. From the concept when this radio was established, and it was right at the beginning when I had programs on this radio. And I must say that I've never, in my experience, had so many people calling and asking for help with regards to this discussion, like how we had on this. And that tells you that this was a discussion that was needed. I would like to also apologize to many of the people that had called, that unfortunately, in my weakness, I was unable to assist, and I guided you to other people because I did not want to get involved. And I don't think I myself am qualified to do the necessary counseling and therapies that were required. So to them, I make dua that Allah eases your difficulties, and we make dua that the programs has helped. However, there were one or two or very few negativities that had also come, and I would like to address that. Firstly, from some Muslim professionals that wrote a letter that perhaps we are not qualified to have this discussion, and I fully agree with them that we were not qualified. We just discussed what we had to discuss. In fact, some of them wrote even a letter to the multi-choice DSTV complaining about this program for whatever the intentions were, whatever it is. There was also one individual that, unfortunately, due to his weakness, had a lot to say about the definition of empath, and we spoke about empathy. And I don't know where he linked this to some secularism and Satanism. Allahu alam. Again, I think that was a misunderstanding. And also, there was a lot that I was criticized about something that I said about Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Again, I think there was a deliberate misrepresentation by people. If they would have heard the entire discussion, they would have understood it is absolutely not what they had alleged that we had said. And unfortunately, many senior ulama had also, without verifying, went onto some platforms criticizing this. Again, we make dua for them that in future, let us first verify before we do and make judgments. And that's what we said. One of the purpose of this program was not to just make judgments. However, at the end, we say, may Allah Ta'ala accept whatever we tried. Yes, we are not perfect. We will falter. We must have faltered. And whatever weakness or whatever ills that or wrongs that we had said on this program, it is from the evil of our own selves. And if we said something that was beneficial, we make dua to Allah Ta'ala that Allah make it beneficial to people. And whoever still has some issues regarding toxic relationships, they can call, and wherever we are able to assist, inshallah, we will be able to assist. I leave it to you, Maulana. If there are any comments, we can take that.
Just one question that is coming. I'm married to a widower. My husband has no respect for me. He treats me like his adult daughters. His adult daughters are treated much better. My role in his home is a maid, not a helper or a caregiver. Allah guide us.
Allah make it easy. And again, I think you need to have those frank discussions with him at a time when he is in a better mood, sober mood. And you should be able to discuss these issues with him and not sit with it, because it can cause more emotional harm to yourself.
And one last comment that had come just before we close the program. Assalamu alaikum. Narcissism is extreme self-involvement to the degree that it makes a person ignore the needs of those around them. We did mention that also when we just started, that many of the qualities of narcissism, we didn't say that sometimes you might find a few of the qualities in yourself, but that doesn't mean you are a narcissist. And Assalamu alaikum. Kudos to Raggie. Your program was absolutely informative, very insightful, and this comes from someone with a postgraduate degree in psychology. I may Allah shower you with his choicest blessings.
Jazakumullah for that. We ask Allah to give us ikhlas and make it beneficial to all, inshallah.
Ameen. Well, Jazakallah for your time. Inshallah, we'll see what we're going to discuss next.
Inshallah.
We have 3 weeks before the holiday. And inshallah, we do have something coming up in the new year. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
We'll expound on that in the coming weeks, or even just when we start in the new year.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The trucks have arrived and stocks are in. Yes, Wonder Dates have finally moved to number 9 Peters Road, Springfield.